The patch note for 14.3 is out, and this new version brings a lot of changes to ADC systems, because ADC players simply cannot breed even after all the changes we went through in Season 13. So I hope you're all ready for a wild ride in Season 14, because who knows what Riot has in store. But anyways, all these changes also mean that my guide for Kaisa needs an update. Some builds are gone while others may come back, and since Season 14 started 1 month ago, people have cooked many builds, and I'll be featuring ones I feel are comfortable for the casual player base. Alright, with that said, let's begin and see how to build Kaisa in 14.3. One last thing. Like I said before, this video is only one of many updates to the guide I'll make to keep up to date with the change to the meta. So if you don't want to miss out, make sure to subscribe, it helps me a lot. So like before, Kaisa has 4 styles she can play in 14.3. AD Crit, Hybrid, Lethality, and AP Kaisa. Alright, let's start with AD Crit. In terms of the runes, nothing has changed compared to 14.1. It's or you go HOB or you go Litho Tempo. Between them, there is no real difference in power and really depends on your preferences. Don't build Halo Blades because a pro player went for it when Litho Tempo would be more comfortable for you. HOB is more for aggressive players and people that like to fight in lane, but does fall off in the mid game, while Litho Tempo offers you more sustain in lane and a stronger scaling while having a weaker laning phase. Okay, for items now. We first need to mention the actual changes. The big news for ADC systems are the change to non-quiver items. So Kraken Slayer, Stormrazor, and Static Shave all got a change. Kraken Slayer lost both its AD and AP ratio and replaced by a flat damage that scales with levels, going from 140 to 310. If you're confused if it's a nerf or a buff, when you first buy Kraken Slayer, it's a buff in damage compared to live servers. At second item, it's similar to live servers and it's a nerf no matter what at 3 items. Next up, Stormrazor. Like for Kraken, it lost its AD ratio and its flat damage went from 90 to 100, but now you have 0 scaling. The only thing that you gained is that the movement speed buff you get went from 1 second to 1.5 seconds. In terms of damage, this is a nerf at first item, and at 3 items you're losing upwards of 50 damage per proc. Yeah, for a champion like Kaisa that relies on damage, this is really rough. Finally, Static Shave got a pretty nice change. Its cost is going down from 3000 gold to 2700 gold. But this passive now only do 90 damage flat with no scaling. The idea Riot has over all these changes is to limit the scaling that non-quiver has. They should be bought only during the laning phase, and then they will fall off over time. Which is kinda dumb to be fair when ADCs are supposed to scale, but I'm not a Rioter, so what do I know? Finally, I need to mention the Rage Blade change. It's not the biggest change, but it will impact Kaisa. So it's going from 30 AD to 35 AD and 30 AP to 35 AP. This change will allow Kaisa players to get Q evolution at level 8 if you are able to get Rage Blade early, since before you will need to wait till level 10. But there's a downside to this change. The build path also changed from the axe plus longsword to recurve bow and pickaxe. This means that to get a Q evolution you will need to spend a total of 6000 gold compared to 4500 gold before. But even though it does sound bad, this doesn't change a lot since before you still need to wait for level 10 anyway. And now there are new options that can fix this Q evolution issue. Alright, we spent enough time talking about the changes, let's go over the actual build guide. For AD Kaisa, there are 3 builds I can suggest. First off, Kraken Slayer into Gunzio Rage Blade into Turnus or Navari. This build was pretty popular in 14.1 and 14.2 for good reasons. The combo of Kraken and Rage Blade not only is comfortable but allows you to deal more Kraken and passive procs. And with the Kraken Slayer changes that does more damage, it will feel even better to build this in the laning phase when Kaisa is at her weakest. So if you're getting fed or you have a comfortable lane where you can farm pretty well, then Kraken is one of the best options to maximize your damage. But let's say the lane is rough or you're facing out of poke and you need your Q evolution ASAP to control the wave. This is where Static Rageblade Navari comes in. Yes, I know, Static, it's been a while, but yes, since now it's only 2700 gold, this means that you can get a super cheap Q evolution at only 3575 gold, which is just crazy. This is the fastest Q evolution with a fully completed item, mind you. And even if the passive of Static might not be the best, it really doesn't matter when you look at the price and the stats you get for that price. It just feels so good to have such an early Q evolution when you're facing a rough poke matchup like Jhin and Zarya. Alright, next up is a really underrated build, but I like it a lot. It's Kraken Slayer or Static Shave depending on how rough your lane is, into Navari, into Phantom Dancer or Rage Blade. This is the Season 13 or Season 12 Kaisa build that still works to this day. Navari second, although it does less damage now because it's not a mythic anymore, is still a solid core item on the champion. Due to its CDR reduction, if you're facing a tank or a lot of bruisers, this is a solid build that will help you kite with comfort. Before I end this section, I need to mention a couple things. Number one, the reason why I didn't include Terminus' second item anymore is because with the change to Static Shave, there are just better options now. thing is, when I put it in my guide in 14.1, it was because it gave a quick Q&A evolution. The problem is that this item doesn't feel so good as a second item. It takes too long to fully stack, and the penetration that it gives is just too early in the game to get much value anyway. But I still believe it's a good item on Kaisa when you build it as a third option or fourth option. Number 2, I did not include double Noon Quiver. Yes, I did showcase it in my channel in 14.2, but now that Storm Razor got nerfed, I really don't recommend it. Storm losing its AD ratio made it lose way too much damage for any AD build to function with it. Not to mention that building double Noon Quiver when Noon Quiver items lost their scaling also feels bad. Alright, hybrid time. For this, nothing has really changed. You still go for Rage Blade second into Nasher third. The thing that did change is that for the first item, well, you have a lot of options. You can go Kraken Slayer when you're fed or when you face lower GDCs like Samira. If you're facing out a mobile champion like Ezreal or Jhin, then Storm Razor can also be a good option with the added movement speed it gives, and finally, if the lane is rough, you can go for Static Shiv. As for the fourth item, again you have a lot of options. You can go for Terminus versus Bruisers, Voice Staff versus Tanks, Shadow Flame for more burst, or Dead Cap if you're fed. But before we wrap up with Hybrid, I must add a little warning. In my opinion, at least right now, Hybrid Kaisa doesn't feel too good to play, since most hybrid systems all got nerfed and you need a lot of gold before you can start to do damage. So I heavily recommend to only go for this build when your team needs some AP, or when the enemy team is heavily building armor and not building any MR. The only good side that hybrid build has right now is that it always starts with a Noon Quiver item into a Rage Blade, which means you have a lot of time to decide if you want to go for AD or AP depending on how the game is going. Now with the fun stuff, Lethality. So there's a lot, and I mean a lot of ways to play this style. This is why I'll focus on one build that is not only comfortable but also somewhat safe to build. Dust Collector into Kraken Slayer into Rage Blade. This is a classic Season 11 build making its comeback. This build gives you the quickest and cheapest viable Q evolution, since you want to start always with Dirk plus Noon Quiver plus Pickaxe for a quick 3175 gold Q evolution. For the fourth item, you can build Bloodthirster if you want more damage, or LDR for some pen. Now yes, I know, like I said before, there are other options you can go for, like the Korean build Eclipse. But even though yes, this build does work and you can build Eclipse into Kraken Slayer, into Rage Blade or Nasher, my issue is that you need to know how to play Kaisa, because this build requires you to be aggressive and to trade with the enemy. So if you don't know how to trade with Kaisa, or you don't know your limits on the champion, this build will feel really bad to play. My guides are more focused for the general player base that includes casual players, so I don't think it's right to include a build that will only work for 1% of the player base. And last but not least, AP Kaisa, my favorite style. Now like before, I only recommend going for AP Kaisa when you play top lane or mid lane, because my mini Kaisa bot lane is just way too weak to play. For the runes, nothing has changed. You can go for first strike when you face an easy matchup like Malzar or Maokai, but in most cases when the matchup is a bit more rough like Darius or Tryndamere, I recommend going for Fleet for a more comfortable laning phase, since Fleet will give you more sustain and kiting power. Anyways, for this, there is only one build you can really go for in 14.3, which is Mana Mune plus Ludens plus Horizon Focus or Shadow Flame if you're fed. Your fourth item should be Dead Cap or Voice Staff versus Tanks, and your boots should be the haste boots unless you're facing a lot of MR. In this case, source boots are also a good option. Ludens also receive a nice buff during this patch, lowering the cost by 100 gold, from 3000 gold to 2900 gold. That means that in Season 14, it's now 600 gold cheaper to build 3 Kaisa with Horizon Focus compared to Season 13. Which is always nice to see. Now, since people have been asking, here's why I build Ludens of Companion when this item isn't the best. The reason why is actually pretty simple. It's because this item is just super comfortable. It gives you everything you want. It gives you mana for early Q evolution, which is always nice when you're facing something like Victor or Aatrox, AP of course, and haste, since you do need around 50 haste on Kaisa to be comfortable with W book. So although yes, the item isn't the strongest, it's just really comfortable, and sometimes it's more worth it than focusing simply on damage. Now one last thing, you probably realize that I didn't mention Nasher, and that's for a good reason. I personally don't recommend going from Mana Mune into Nasher because it just takes way too long to get online. Even players like Dirt that was known to play Nasher Kaisa also stopped playing her for similar reasons. So yes, as of right now, it's better to go full AP Kaisa without Nasher. And there you have it. Now I'll finish the video without a script because I've been editing videos and making videos for the past 3 days, plus college, so I'm a bit exhausted, as you can see. But anyways, this should cover pretty much everything you need to know about 14.3. I'll keep the guide updated. Obviously, if there is big changes, if there is a lot of big meta shift, I'll make sure to cover it again. But if there is a new build that just pops out, or like a new interesting build that someone cooked, instead of changing the guide, I'll make sure I'll do the same thing as I did for Noonquiver, Double Noonquiver. I'll feature it in my channel doing a gameplay video. And yeah, there we go. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. It took me so long to make, and with the also Heaven Skull Kaisa. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, it really helps me a ton. We're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. And with that said, see you all on stream or next time. Bye bye everyone.